نحمد ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another Business Matters program brought to you from the studios here in West Road Overport, studios of Radio Al Ansar. The Business Matters program hosted by the Minara Chamber of Commerce. Indeed, tonight a very, very illustrious guest, a person that doesn't need much introduction to Radio Al Ansar, a person who was a keynote speaker at the Minara Awards evening 2 years ago, which is where I first met him. Had the opportunity of meeting him again at the latest Minara Awards evening. He is none other than Mr. Zunaid Bulbilia. Zunaid is the former CEO of MTN South Africa and current group executive at the Morvest Group. And tonight he's going to be speaking to us on implementing technology and technology transformation in business strategy. So something that is familiar to some of us. Zunaid is going to enlighten that. With that, Assalamu alaikum, Zunaid, and welcome to the Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar.
Wa alaikum salam, Anwar. My pleasure to meet you again, albeit on a virtual platform. But alhamdulillah, I guess at least we get a chance to speak, even if it's in this fashion.
Zunaid, you indeed have a very illustrious background. The CEO of MTN South Africa, we don't have to say any more. But I would be failing in my duty if I didn't ask you what made you kind of give up that environment, the high-profile environment of being the CEO of MTN South Africa, and then I think for a while you were on your own and now the group executive at Morvest Group. But I would have thought that reaching what one would term maybe a pinnacle of one's career as the CEO of MTN, why would you have given that all up?
You know, if I had a rand for every time I was asked that question, I wouldn't have to work another day in my life. Alhamdulillah. I think the short answer is my time at MTN was very long. I was there for 22 years. It's almost a life sentence as opposed to a career and a job. And after 22 years, you know, you start to reflect on the things that are maybe more meaningful in life as compared to chasing after the lofty heights of what a career can bring you. And you know, the perspective I had after all of those years was that my expansion in terms of going forward in my career required that I needed to move out of the country. As you know, MTN operates in a variety of different geographies, most notably in Africa, other parts of Africa, and the sacrifice of what that would have meant to me and my family was not something which was something that I was comfortable with. And after 22 years, I think it was time to do something completely different. And alhamdulillah, since then I've had the pleasure of doing many different things, from lecturing at universities to starting many of my own businesses, which has been a very rewarding experience, to working with the good folk at Morvest, which has been a very, very satisfying experience. So alhamdulillah, you know, when Allah asks you to close one door, he never fails in his promise to open many others.
Interesting, Zunaid. Yeah, but well explained. I think sometimes we all get caught in this rat race of chasing the financial gains and financial kind of high that it gives us, and we don't take that step back to sit and kind of analyze what is being happening in our lives. And I suppose you took that step of saying, well, it's a huge step of stepping down actually from MTN. But alhamdulillah, as you say, other doors have opened and you're quite satisfied in what you're doing.
Alhamdulillah, I can't complain. It would be very, very, you know, I think in Gujarati or in Urdu or Arabic, they call it na-shukri. It would be very, 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 you know, disingenuous of me to not make shukr for what my life has become in the years at MTN and beyond it as well.
Okay, Zunaid, your role at Morvest. Tell us a little bit about the Morvest Group and your involvement with them.
So, and I think this might even, in many ways explain, the path that sometimes Allah chooses for you. Morvest were a listed company. They were a listed group that were on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And in around 2016, 2017, I can't remember the exact year, they decided to delist the business. And the primary reason for that was because, when you're a listed company, the reality is that you get involved in certain transactions and things which maybe from a Sharia perspective is kind of on the borderline. There was a lot of debt in the business, lots of money that was not employed productively in the context of driving the business forward. And in order to get a bit more flexibility and to focus the business a bit more, they decided to delist the business and take it private. So today it's a completely 100% privately owned family business. And Morvest is, I think the best description is to call it a highly diversified investment holding company. So they've got a number of companies that they've invested in over the 3 decades that the company has been around. Probably between 25 and about 30 odd operating companies in the group. And those companies are in South Africa. They've got a very strong presence in Dubai. We've bought companies in the UK. We've got a sales office in Australia. So the company is quite diverse from a geographical point of view. And the different industries that we play in are from manufacturing, lots of manufacturing businesses in the group, a few retail businesses in the group as well. And then I guess, particularly in the last 7 odd years that I've been with them, we've taken a very strong decision to start investing in technology companies. And in those last 7 odd years, we've done about 4 or 5 very, very, very interesting investments in technology-based businesses, from satellite connectivity to digital performance marketing, to omni-channel contact centers, e-commerce businesses. It's a very wide and very varied portfolio. And in many of the businesses that Morvest has invested in since I've joined them, I've also invested my private money into it as well, so that I've also got some skin in the game. And it allows me to provide strategic guidance to those management teams and to the guys on the ground, and at the same time to be expanding my own portfolio and to keep abreast of what's going on in the technology space in particular. So that's Morvest in a group. It's in a nutshell. I think the most satisfying thing about Morvest is that we deal completely we think in a very Sharia compliant way. There's no debt in the business. We only do things for cash. We invest only if our balance sheet can afford it. And alhamdulillah, it's worked very, very well since the days of listing were left long and far behind. And the business has grown exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years.
Alhamdulillah, good to hear that. Good to hear how conscious the group is of the Sharia principles, following the Sharia guidelines. And with that comes barakah, alhamdulillah. I always say that if you do it the correct way, then there's always barakah in the business as well. So may that continue for a long while. You touched on the technology issues that you are actively investing in at the moment on behalf of Morvest and yourself. And tonight we're talking technology. So if I can start by asking you, what does technology transformation mean in the context of business strategy, and why is it essential for business today? Many of us, the older generation, I would think, we kind of scared of this of this technology thing that's coming at us, and it's coming at us really, really fast. The youngsters more au fait with it, more accepting. But in a nutshell, why is it essential for the business today?
So I think it's very important just to distinguish between technology and strategy, and I think it's important just to make sure that the difference between the two is understood. In that, technology is not in itself a strategy for a business. So the use of technology is more often than not is an enabler of what the business strategy is supposed to be about. So if the business, for example, wants to dominate certain markets or wants to be the number one provider in a particular service or wants to have the best customer service or wants to dominate a particular market segment. Those strategies are in today's time more enabled by technological platforms as used to be done in the past. So technology in itself is not a strategy for a business. I can't tell you how many times in the last 20, 30 odd years that I've been working in both corporate as well as in the private space. Often people say we need to embark on a technology strategy for the business. And the minute you believe that your strategy is the technology, then you've actually lost sight of what your business is all about. So technology in a nutshell is a very effective enabler of what your business strategy is supposed to be. It is in itself not a strategy for a business.
Okay. So how can companies assess which technology solutions will best support their strategic goals, especially with so many new options available?
So I think maybe the best way to answer that question is by using an example. I was at the AML event a couple of weeks ago down in Durban.
That's right. I heard you were the guest speaker at the event.
And in that event, I was warned up front by Shabir Chauhan, who, as you know, is the chairman of AML, that a lot of the people that were attending the event were concerned that technology was going to overtake their business and was going to make their business obsolete and redundant.
Okay.
And in that discussion, I tried to the best of my ability to illustrate and to explain to people that were present at the event that technology provides you with the platform to enable your strategy. Now, you know, it's maybe easy to say that without trying to illustrate by way of an example. So let me take the accounting profession as an example. The accounting profession spends a lot of manual man hours, doing reconciliations. Those reconciliations may be, for example, between your cash book in your business and your bank statement that comes from the bank. Now, traditionally, that process required a human being to spend many hours going through the bank statement in fine detail, line by line, and then comparing that line for line item on the bank statement with the line for line items in the cash book or in the books of account of the company, and looking for where the differences were to ensure that the differences could be explained, and therefore that would then allow you to have performed or completed a reconciliation between the two. That process would take upwards of, depending on how detailed the bank statement was, how many volume of transactions were on the bank statement, could take you a few hours, it could take you a few days. It was a very laborious manual exercise. And because it was manual and laborious, besides being time consuming, it could also be fraught with errors that could take place. You might not get to the outcome the way you want to get to the outcome at the first time. And what technology allows you to do is it allows you to take many of the mundane and routine and labor-intensive tasks, and it automates it on behalf of your business so that you can get on with running your business as opposed to doing the administration that is required at such a detailed level and can be so manual and time-consuming. That is where technology can be a very effective enabler to allow a business to become more effective and to become more efficient.
Okay, I mean, you quoted the example of the accounting profession. I suppose there's now the technologies reach a stage where all of that can be done in a matter of, I would say, literally seconds, and it would free up valuable human time, human resources to do other things. But by the same token, there is this real fear that technology and computers are going to override our lives, will lead to massive unemployment, redundant people. And that is a real fear in many spheres, where people are even saying robots are in the future going to take over and literally be thinking for us. And we see it in, for example, motor manufacturing, where a lot of the line duties that were being completed by humans is now become robotic. So is this not something that one needs to keep in mind?
So I think, to deny the statement and to deny the threat would be short-sighted. There's no doubt that manual and laborious transactions and events and activities will and are being automated away from human beings at a very rapid pace. There's no question about that. And what is now becoming more and more evident is that there's a need for human beings and for businesses to repurpose their people. So, when a business purely says that we're doing this purely to save costs, then the business has got a very specific objective in mind. And in that context, they achieve the objectives very, very quickly. And then there's no further no further room or runway for further innovation in the business. Whereas businesses that say, listen, we are gonna take this opportunity to automate a lot of the things that we do manually at this point in time. But in parallel to that, we are going to repurpose our people. We're going to retrain them. We're going to try and use their skills to be done and to be used in an environment where they can apply their minds. Then you get very different outcomes because you're now applying the same people to tasks that add different value to a business. And what I've found in many different organizations that I've either worked with or worked for is that the organizations that take that specific path in terms of being able to repurpose their people to apply themselves in a different way as compared to how they used to, achieve significantly better results as opposed to those organizations who purely look at digitization or automation as a way to reduce costs. The reality is that no technology can ever replace the intuition of a human being. So machines can do things quicker, they can do things faster, they can make less mistakes. In fact, they can make zero mistakes. But human beings possess the intellect to be able to apply intuition, judgment, emotion. Those are traits and characteristics that no machine can ever imitate. And as a result of that, in my mind, there's never a time that's going to arrive where a machine can completely overtake what a human being brings to the table. The question is now going to become, can human beings who have always done laborious, manual, time-consuming tasks elevate their skill set to being able to apply their minds on top of the information that comes out of a machine?
Okay. Zunaid, moving on, what are the most significant challenges businesses face when integrating new technology, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
So I think probably the biggest challenge that an organization faces when they are implementing technologies is that they believe that technology will fix the problems in the business as a result of implementing the technology. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. If the quality of your product is poor, then automating the process of how a customer can order the product from your company is not going to fix that problem.
Sure.
It's just going to mean that they're going to order a poor product a lot quicker, and they're going to get unhappy a lot faster. That's all that's going to happen.
Right.
If a company is unable to provide good customer service, then automating the process of providing service is not going to fix the problem. So often what happens is that the biggest mistake a company makes is that they focus on what the technology is going to bring, as opposed to fixing what the core issues are in the business and then automating the corrected business. So when you take a business that's not working and all you do is you apply technology above it, you automate a bad business. And it means you get to failure quicker. That's all that happens. So when you are wanting to implement technology in your business to either make things quicker, faster, better service, etc., make sure that the underlying processes and the quality of what you deliver and all those fundamentals are first fixed before you automate what that service is or what the product is. Otherwise, you're going to automate what is already a failing organization.
Okay. And how can companies ensure a smooth transition for their workforce when adopting new technologies, especially in terms of training and change management?
So the most effective is probably something you've heard a million times before, but it's unfortunately and undoubtedly true, is you have to make people part of the process of what you are trying to change. Often what happens is businesses are in the process of automating and they keep it a big secret. So there's a bunch of people sitting in a dark, smokeful room doing all of this automation, coding, doing all these things. And then one day they announce to the entire business, we've automated X, Y, and Z, or we've done something to the business that's going to change the business completely. And then there's this expectation that the people that are still working in the business must now be able to embrace what the change in technology means for themselves as well as for the business and for the customers. The most common mistake companies make is by excluding the people from the beginning. Make the people that are going to be responsible for embracing the technology part of the change that's about to take place. Let them have input. Let them be part of the process of transforming from a manual business to an automated business, because if they feel part of the process, they are going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem later on.
Okay, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the fear factor there, because when you force somebody to embrace something rather than smoothly transition them into it, it puts a strain on them, and more than that, they're going to resist change and kind of try to do everything against that change.
Yeah, and often, unfortunately, it's perceived as being people are negative, people are resistant. The reality is that human beings have got very human tendencies to feel fear when they feel threatened. And if a technology is implemented independent of your input, you are going to experience a very human emotion of feeling threatened by this technology. And if you feel threatened, you're going to resist. If you resist, the effectiveness of the technology being implemented becomes far less. And in fact, then companies are completely surprised by why the technological intervention that they've introduced has not been successful. And it almost becomes this vicious cycle that because you didn't involve the people now that are necessary to make the technology work become the main reason why it doesn't work.
Okay, I think involving people is one thing, but also from a company perspective, often there could be this thought process that we're spending money on technology, but now we also have to spend money in terms of staff training. And yet the very concept of introducing the technology in the first place was to try to save on labor, perhaps, and yet we're having to spend more money on staff training. I mean, it's an abnormality between the two.
Yeah, so it sounds like a contradiction. And here's the insight that I want to provide, I guess, having worked in technology businesses for the better part of my career. Technology provides you with a platform to super scale your business. Now, what I mean by super scale is in the traditional way in which our business grows, if you can make 10 products at the moment with one machine, and that's the capacity of the machine, if you want to make 20 products, you need 2 machines. If you want to make 30 products, you need 3 machines. That's the law of capacity and supply and demand. That's how it works. Technology does not follow the same script. Technology has this exponential capability that if you implement the platform and you implement it well, it is scalable to a point where the initial investment can give you returns well in excess. In fact, it could be exponential as compared to the initial investment. So when you approach a technology investment on the basis that if I implement this, I'm supposed to be reducing costs, then you are on the wrong wicket. Because what's going to happen is if you spend the money on the technology and you spend the money on the people and their training and their change management and all those other factors that are necessary to make the technological implementation a success, you create a platform where in the future, your ability to keep growing your business without having to make further variable investments in your business becomes a reality. And then the returns become unbelievable. So the MTN example was an example of that, where we invested in the network. And as a result of investing in the network, the returns that came later on as a result of the technology that was invested was of a far superior nature as compared to a business where every time you want to invest, you've got to double your investment or triple your investment in order to get triple the output. And that's the beauty of technology. Technology creates a platform for super scaling. The normal way of scaling a business is that you've got to invest to get proportional return. Technology does not follow the same script.
Okay, Zunaid, we've got some bills to pay here at the station, so we're going to go for a bit of an ad break. And when we come back, we're going to carry on the same theme of technology transformation. We'll talk a little bit about data security and then round up the program. So if you can just bear with us, we're going for a short ad break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, it's the Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar. You with me, Anwar Mullah, and the Business Matters program brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce. We've been having a really, really interesting discussion with Zunaid Bulbilia, the CEO of the Morvest Group, and we've been talking about technology transformation in the business. And we've reached a stage where we need to explore the role of the data security. So, Zunaid, what role does data security play in technology transformation, and how can businesses protect themselves against potential cyber threats? We've heard of a lot carrying on at the moment. Something I was reading about last week, where one of the massive big companies was made. There was a demand made on them for many hundreds of millions of rands to protect their client base. Most of these companies obviously would not pay that over, it being a ransom. And sometimes the information is leaked, customers are compromised. So data security is something that is constantly on the minds, and the bigger the company is, the bigger the threat. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think I'm not an expert on data security, but suffice to say that data security and physical security are absolutely on the same level and require the same level of investment and the same level of attention to detail. If your physical body is under threat, or your physical business is under threat, the physical assets, if it's the premises or the vehicles or the machinery, the company would enlist the services of a professional company or a professional organization to provide that security. And it's amazing how, when it comes to the topic of technology, that people think you can get away with it. We'll be able to get away without having to invest with the professionals. My strong advice is you cannot cut corners when it comes to the issues around technology and building the right moats and the right security around how your business is going to operate in the digital environment. You are under constant threat. Today I was in my car and I received a phone call from these scammers who try and invite you to a meeting. So they talk to you and they say, please, will you join this Zoom meeting, because we are collecting money on behalf of this Dawa organization, or we're doing whatever it is. So you immediately think, hang on a second, let me join this meeting. And they say, please enter this code. And if you enter the code, they actually then have got access to your WhatsApp. And if they've got access to your WhatsApp, that means they can try and get access to your bank account. And the rest of it is quite easy to predict what's going to happen. You have to invest with professional people who understand the space and who are constantly innovating to try and stay ahead of the criminals. If you think you can do data security on your own, or you can outsource it to your cousin, you are looking for trouble. The more digital your business becomes, the more you require professionals to provide that service to you.
Okay, sound advice there. Zunaid, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the bottom line. And companies are saying, yes, we can go into this technology transformation and implementation and go the digital route, all of that. Bottom line is, what are some of the measurable benefits companies can expect from a successful technology transformation? And how soon can they typically see a return on investment? Because it's only based on return on investment where companies are going to be willing to put more money into technology.
So the reality is that if you're a late adopter of a technology, then your return on investment is likely to take longer. Now, this is the I guess it shows that Allah has a sense of humor, because the early adopters of technology take massive risk because the technology is untested. Right. You never know whether the technology is going to survive, or it's gonna blow out, or it's going to be an absolute winner of a success. So if you're an early adopter, you take massive risk, but your expectation of return is going to be a lot higher. And there's plenty of examples of where companies or individuals have taken a risk as being an early adopter of a particular technology, and they've had returns that have made them into billionaires, whether it was the cell phone industry back in the 1990s, or it was people who started messaging apps like WhatsApp or whatever else is out there. Those early adopters made massive amounts of return as a result of the risks that they took. But for every success story in that space, there are more than 10 stories of people that were not successful. So if you are an early adopter, you could hit it big. In cricket, they say, go big or go home. You're either going to hit the ball out of the stadium, or your middle stump is going to be out of the ground. And that is the risk that comes with technology and with being an early adopter for technology. If you wait a bit longer and you wait for the technology to embed itself, for there to be use cases, other people to demonstrate that the technology works, iron out the bugs, and then you invest, you are then investing on a more stable platform. There's a track record, and your chances of success are higher, but your returns are going to be lower, because the early adopters have taken the early cream by investing in the technology. So where you place yourself on that continuum between risk and return is a function of your risk appetite. If you've got lots of disposable income, you've got discretionary cash, and you're a bit of a risk taker, you're quite a young person, then perhaps your risk appetite is higher and you'll take a bit more risk. What I would not recommend you do is take your children's college fund or the money you're using to save to go for Hajj and use that money to be an early investor in technology, because the chances of success are not guaranteed. In fact, they are very, very small. So it's a long answer to a short question, but it does depend on your risk appetite.
Zunaid, I think sometimes when you're getting in kind of late in the show, so to speak, you're forced to adopt that technology and to spend on a technology, because more than making new returns or phenomenal returns, just to stay abreast and to be in line with competitors, you have to spend that money.
Absolutely right. And then often you what's called a laggard. So laggards are people who end up having to invest in the technology or risk becoming obsolete. And those are the people often who actually don't see great return. They, in fact, sometimes get negative return because they are investing at a point where the returns have already been creamed by everybody else. They've lost market share as a result of them not adopting the technology. And in fact, they're just trying to play catch up. And often they actually end up behind where they were before the technology arrived.
I think in that sense, and we can conclude on this, the two famous companies that are often quoted that have fallen off the map or the radar, Kodak and BlackBerry are very often used as examples of companies that didn't transform quick enough.
There's a litany of those kind of companies. Nokia is another example. You don't see Nokia handsets anymore
yes.
because they fail to see that. You don't see Betamax anymore. You don't see VHS anymore. The corporate graveyard is filled with examples like those.
Okay. Zunaid, we got to take the Isha Azan before the news, so we have a few minutes to round up. Your closing remarks for us tonight.
I guess in terms of closing remarks, you've asked most of the questions that I think are relevant to the topic at hand. Maybe the one final remark I will make is that over the years, maybe the biggest fear I've seen amongst people that own businesses, I guess I'm now moving away from the corporate space to people who have built businesses from scratch. Often these are family businesses, multi-generational, started maybe by the great-grandfather. It's come down to the generations now. The new generation are coming in. There's this massive push to bring technology in because the youngsters are seeing the technology, etc. And then there's resistance between that generation and the generation maybe that's running the business at the moment. And often that can pull a business apart. And maybe the advice, the final bit of advice I want to just perhaps impart to those business owners who are resisting the change and the technology that's coming. I think it's very important to maybe just contextualize. You don't have to be an expert on the technology yourself for the technology to be relevant and to be successful in your business. I myself often today still ask my children to do things on my phone that I don't know how to do myself. I don't have to be an expert on a cell phone to be able to be successful in the cell phone industry. The fundamentals that make a business successful have remained the same and will continue to remain the same. Technology is an enabler and allows you to achieve your business objectives in a different way as compared to how it was done in the past. If you become fearful of the technology because you believe you need to be an expert on the technology, that fear can destroy your business.
Zunaid Bulbilia, lovely speaking to you this evening. Really, really informative. Always is speaking to you. Inshallah, we'll get you back on the air at some time in the near future. Thanks for giving up your time tonight and sharing your wonderful experiences with us on technology transformation. And with that, it's wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, that's it for us for tonight. Inshallah, we'll take the Isha Azan and then the news. Our technician Zakaria is behind the scene here tonight, and he's eagerly anticipating me getting off the air so he can take over. And with that, it's wassalamu alaikum from me for tonight.